Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of I'm Here for the Soul podcast. Today, I am joined by Ross Jenkins. He moved away from Birmingham when he was in his late teens and eventually became his own business owner, entrepreneur, and he helps businesses grow. So, if you want to hear some top advice for your own business, or if you're aspiring to grow your own business, Ross is going to be the guy to help you out. So I really look forward to chatting with you today, Ross. And hopefully you can give the listeners some insight into how you became the person that you are today. So first of all, I just want to say, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Great. Okay, I'm glad that you are here. Could you tell us whereabouts you are right now?
Sure. So I'm in Valencia, Spain.
Okay. And what's happening there? What made you move there?
Um, I guess the cost of living, the cost of a really great lifestyle in terms of the heat, the weather. You can fly around Spain relatively cheap. Ibiza is 15 minutes away on the flight, and about 20 euros. Everything's pretty reasonable, and the lifestyle you get is incredible.
Yeah, I can imagine. So, before we get started, I want to kind of ask you um the name of your website and what it is that you actually do on a daily basis.
Sure. So the name of my website is Digital Me, so digitalme.cc. And we focus on performance marketing. So that's your email marketing, that's your landing pages, that's building you into a profitable business in terms of giving you great results in terms of booked calls, sales, revenue, and also teaching you ways to improve selling. I've been doing sales and marketing for over 10 years. I started doing door to door over 10 years ago in probably the worst parts of Birmingham. So we found some great ways to really sell to people and understand people's sort of characters and audiences. I think that gives us a massive edge in competition.
Okay. So, before I start asking you for advice, I want to get to know you because on this podcast, we get to know the person behind the brand. Because behind every business that's being run, behind every entrepreneur is a person. Um, and I want to kind of get to know you as an individual. So I just want to go back in time to your childhood. Did you always know that you were going to end up getting into something? I suppose you don't know when you're a child, but what were some of your interests as a child? And do you feel like you ever showed any signs of like maybe living a more, non-traditional lifestyle? Was there any signs of that when you was a kid growing up?
Yeah, probably a fair few sort of trigger warnings. Both my parents worked for the government and they knew a pretty traditional system. You go to college, you go to university, you get a standard 9 to 5 job and you know, you hate your job and you carry on. That's just the way of life. From a young age, I always wanted to be a business owner. I think it was a businessman. I didn't really know what I wanted to be in terms of that. From the age of 14, I owned a website and we used to buy and sell websites. So we'd buy them, put marketing into them and sell them. So from a young age, I kind of knew the direction I wanted to go in. I just probably was way too raw to be able to get to where I am now. I needed to go work for some people and understand, how they've done it and what they're doing and, how I can improve.
Yeah. So, at what moment did you think, you know what, I'm not going to be a person that works a 9 to 5? Like, what was that moment for you?
Yeah. So I I left England when I was about 22, 23. I went to work in Qatar for 2 years and then I went to work in Ireland for a year. And my final employer, we had a verbal agreement and he screwed me pretty hard, about $75,000. And I thought, you know, I could just leave here and I'll risk it all. The way that I understand, I think my mentality is, if I'm under pressure, I work harder. So I think I had like £1,000 in my bank account, and I flew to Barcelona and just risked it. I was like, if I can get into my own space and just work and see how I can get into that market and get clients, I think that would be best. So I told him I was going to quit, and I moved to Barcelona like the next day. I rented somewhere, and I pretty much just risked it all.
And what was your thought process when this was happening? Because I feel like when we are very young and we don't have as many responsibilities, people always say, okay, travel the world, move to another country, do something crazy, go backpacking or whatever the case may be. But not every person, for whatever reason, chooses to do that. They may be a little bit scared. They might not know where to start. It could be lack of resources, or maybe they don't have like a mentor in their life to kind of guide them down that route. So, how did you, at the age of 22 to 23, have that kind of mindset where you was like, I'm just going to go for it? Like, what was that moment for you? And was there anybody in your life that kind of pushed you or encouraged you to do that, or was it really just you by yourself making that
Sure.
decision?
Sure. So at 22, 23 was when I went to Qatar. So the reason that I went there is they started seeing the oil money pretty quick. I got made redundant maybe a year before that. And I really, really liked that job. So I was like, God damn. I went and worked for a couple of other companies, and honestly, it just sucked. Like I went and worked for a marketing company, and they didn't want to do email marketing. They were scared about doing email marketing, and they're a marketing company. It makes no logical sense, and I just didn't enjoy it. And I thought, if I can go help a company abroad set up their whole sort of marketing systems, then they're starting from scratch. They're understanding from scratch, and I think that's just the way. And that was great because it took me completely out of my comfort zone. Living over there is it's just a massive change in lifestyle. And so, that kind of started me wanting to live elsewhere.
Yeah. Okay. Some of the things as well that I've noticed about you as you speak, you kind of speak quite casually about it, but I've noticed that like you were already kind of thinking of finances as a young person, which is quite interesting because most people at 22, they may be either getting into their first sort of jobs or, finishing up their uni experience or whatever the case may be. But you were very much like your eye was on the prize from a very young age. Like you was thinking, okay, there's money in this, so I want to, go for this. Why did you start to think about money in that way? Was you kind of like raised to be smart with your money? Like, where did that mindset come from?
Sure. So, yeah, I mean, I didn't get spoiled when I was young. I'm an only child, but I definitely didn't get spoiled. Most of my friends had a lot more stuff than I ever had. Um, and I always wanted, I think that's the thing. I always wanted more, I want faster cars, I want bigger houses, I want better lifestyle. And I still have that urge, but there's a drive that you have to get into to be able to get to that point. When I was younger, in terms of when I was working for other companies, I always saw how much money they were bringing in, and I saw how much the clients were getting in turn for the work that I was doing. A lot of the projects I was working solely on, so it wasn't like anyone else was contributing into it. And you see clients making millions of dollars based on the work that I've done in a couple of months, and you think, come on, I'm on like 20 grand a year here. And,
Mm.
I can barely afford I can't afford to move out. I afford a nice car. And it didn't sit well. And even, when I ask for pay rises, it's like jump through these hoops, through those hoops. And it's already pretty concrete in terms of the work that I've done. And that's why working as a freelancer is great because now you can use case studies and, you can show those kind of case studies off to people.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I just want to say as well, like I was also an only child. Um, but I have to say that I was one of those only children that were spoiled. Um, I mean, the thing is, I wasn't a brat or anything like that. It was more so that my mum wanted to give me everything because she had worked really hard. And I think she just wanted to like give me the world. And I wasn't the type of child that would ask for things, but it was just always presented in front of me.
Yeah.
And I am grateful for that. But I think later on in life, I struggled to kind of see the value in money because you almost become accustomed to things. So I didn't even realize that other people my age, like when we were sort of becoming young adults, they were actually working really hard to kind of make a living for themselves.
Yeah.
Whereas if you grow up kind of having things handed to you, that drive that you're supposed to get once you get older just wasn't there as
Yeah.
much for me. I had to kind of like learn as I went along.
Sure.
And I feel like you're a really good example of why I always talk about um the importance of having some sort of challenge in your life.
Yeah.
Because if we give a person too much, they stop seeing the value in things and then their work ethic isn't where it needs to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I feel like as human beings, we need to have something that pushes us and that drives us. And for me, that turning point was becoming a parent, actually.
Wow.
Um, yeah, it becoming a parent, I thought to myself, okay, I need to build a life here and I have someone depending on me, and my schedule was different because instead of having a whole day to waste, it was like each point of the day now mattered
Yes.
because whatever I wanted to do, it would have to fit around looking after a child. So that was the kind of turning point for me where I was like, okay, you gotta work smarter now. And you've got to make time for things, and you got to be organized, and you got to get up early, and you got to get fresh air, like all of those things I kind of learned after becoming a parent, which is why I'm such a big believer in like we all need a little bit of like not necessarily a challenge, but just something to kind of like live for.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
And everyone has different things, you know. Some people want financial goals, some people want
Yeah.
relationship goals, some people want independence or this or that. You know, and routine helps more than anything. If you have no motivation or no drive, you know, building a routine is the best way.
Mm.
A lot of we all have to do things that we don't want to do in terms of paying tax or doing this or having to go to the council or doing that.
Mm.
And it's just building a routine around it and working out how you can find your brain to actually go, okay, cool, I need to do that.
Yeah. One thing that I've always hear when I see people sort of giving advice online is that discipline is the way forward because like motivation isn't always going to be there, your energy levels isn't going to always be there, but discipline will have you showing up for yourself every day.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like what you see like the inspirational memes. It's not like you have to get up at like 6 a.m. and go for an ice bath or stuff like that. You know, I find working at night really relaxing.
Mm,
I'll work until sort of 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning sometimes, depending on what's going on. And that works great for me. But getting up
mm,
at 6 a.m. for a call or a flight, like I have a flight on Monday at 6 a.m., that makes me struggle in terms of it's a complete opposite. So some people are morning people, some people are night, and you don't have to
mm,
follow what the current trend is. Your brain works way different to anyone else's. So it's
mm,
just finding what works for you and building a routine around it.
mm.
You know, if that's applying for jobs or doing this, just set it in your calendar and do it every day and, you know, just
Yeah.
grind.
That is so true, actually. And that's one of the reasons why I like to speak to a variety of people because I feel like not one person is the same. And the advice that you guys are going to give on the podcast are going to be different
Yeah.
from. So I kind of feel like each guest will have like something different to offer because we all have different things that work for us as individuals. So because we're on the topic of routines and daily habits, I would like to know what your daily routine is. So could you give an example of like a typical day for you from start to finish?
Sure. So I normally get up 10 or 11 a.m. I'll go in a sauna for 40 minutes and try sweat out a bit. and then just start work, have a shower, start work, and kind of see what's going on. Normally, because I work a lot with Americans, I'll have 20 plus messages from different people kind of saying, hey, what do you think about this or that? And I'll just get to replying them. Normally between sort of 2 or 3 or 4, I'll kind of drop off for a bit and just go do my own thing. In terms of staying, I'm not going to be able to stay focused from, 11 a.m. all the way up to 4 a.m. So I'll spend time with my child and my girlfriend, and kind of, we'll go out or we'll do something. And come sort of 6, 7 p.m., I'll get back and see what's going on, and speak to the clients and speak to staff. A lot of it isn't a fixed routine. Now we're in a different position to what I was maybe 3 years ago, where, every morning at, 10 or 11 a.m. I was applying for jobs. Now we've got people kind of helping us with those kind of things. It's a lot more of a relaxing state, but I'm consistently on my phone kind of replying to messages, and I think that's a great thing about tools like Slack or various other tools that allow you to keep in touch with people. You can do it from your phone, and as long as I don't have to go check into a system or do that, I could be out on a hike or walking the dogs, and I could reply to messages.
Yeah, that's great. So what time would you say you typically start work for the day if you go to the sauna first?
Sure. So it's normally about sort of 12 midday. I start work, but I'll be replying to messages from 9, 10 a.m. But properly on my computer at sort of midday.
Mm. Now, I noticed there that you mentioned that, you go for a hike and you walk your dog. How important do you think incorporating a bit of movement or exercise into your routine is?
Yeah, it's massive. They say that you're meant to do like 10,000 steps a day. Just to get away from your PC is good enough in terms of like your headspace, but to be able to get like steps and stuff like that and keep fit is massive.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I could go for a 3-hour walk with my dog, and she's still wanting to walk a lot longer. So you'll never win.
Yeah, okay, that's amazing. I definitely think having a bit of movement and a bit of sunlight is like really important. So obviously you mentioned there that obviously you're a father now. Could you talk a little bit about what that experience was like for you becoming a father and now, being a part of a family unit and it's not just yourself as an individual? Like, what's that transition been like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first year was just kind of trying to figure out what's going on and how to deal with it. We've got no family who live here. My girlfriend's family lives in America, and my family live in England, and um, we don't have a whole lot of support here. So I think the first year was very much trying to figure out how or what or where what goes where. Now he's a bit older. Life's kind of figuring it out in terms of a work-life balance, and what's expected from me and what's expected from what goes on. It's tricky being a business owner and having a child, because ultimately your thought is always like, what's the next goal and what we're trying to achieve next. But you've also got to realize that you've got a child there who doesn't just need money, he also needs love and affection. And I think that's kind of where I'm trying to get to.
Yeah. How old is your son now?
He's about 19 months.
Okay, yeah. So he's still like very small and would still need like, all of your affection and stuff. I suppose children always do need your affection, but
Yeah.
then he's not quite at like nursery or school age. Yeah. So I think it's quite interesting how you kind of live a bit of a nomad lifestyle,
Yeah.
but what's unique in this situation is that you also are a part of like the parent gang as well. So do you feel like because you had to be organized anyway, running a business, do you feel like in a way it made fatherhood a bit easier for you? Because there was already you already had like a structure in place. So, did you kind of find it quite easy to kind of adapt to fatherhood, or was it like a complete shock to your system?
I think for the first like couple of months I was like, damn, like, what the hell's going on? And then after that, it got relatively a lot easier month by month. My girlfriend's also a freelancer as well, so it makes it a little bit trickier. we don't get paid time off, and I think your initial thought is when you have a baby, you just take X months off. But when you have two freelancers taking a huge amount of time off, you just don't get paid. It's
Yeah.
quite simple. So for the past sort of while, it's been just me and a bit of her, and now it's kind of coming into the point where she will be working. I think organization is key, especially with a child, but as we come towards, when he will go to school or when he will go to kindergarten, that's when, we need to work out where we're going to live or how we're going to live.
Yeah. That's interesting. Is there any advice that you'd give specifically for parents who are either already living abroad, like away from their home country, or they are considering making that move? Because it is something that I feel like people do, but it's not often, the experience isn't often spoken about. So I would love to hear from your perspective what type of advice you'd give for people that are considering that, especially if they are like business owners like yourself or they're freelancers and they have that flexibility to go abroad, but maybe if they are a parent, they've got that kind of worry of like, okay, but I'm going to be moving away from my support system. I'm going to be moving my child away from their home country and from their school environment. So how can they navigate this? Also, low-key asking for myself as well.
I think if I was gonna, because I'm not gonna do it again. So I think if I was gonna do it originally, I probably
Mhm.
would have flown to America and just we would have spent time with her family and stuff like that. They're a lot more hands-on, and I think they would have for at least a couple of months. I feel like we probably would have got a lot more value and a lot more help.
Mm.
That probably would have been my go-to, because the first couple of months were pretty brutal. So
Mm.
that would be the idea.
So you're basically saying you wouldn't recommend.
It's tricky. It's really tricky because obviously we've got friends here, but they haven't got children or anything like that. So you have to find a new group of friends, which is fine. That's cool. We've got great people here. But the people who haven't got kids, they're not going to be like they'll say they'll babysit, but they're not going to come over and help you. The
Mm.
reality is you can't just rely on people to really help you. So no, I probably wouldn't have done it again in the way
Yeah.
I don't think it was right.
But I have to also say as well, do you not think that age is a massive factor? Because I feel like a baby or a very small toddler is more, what's the word I'm looking for? It's more of a challenge for people that don't have children because it's harder to connect. But when the child is 5, because I'm speaking to someone that has a 5-year-old,
Yeah,
and they can actually walk around and they have a very funny personality and they're able to kind of talk to anyone that approaches them. It's a lot easier for anyone,
yeah, of
including the parents, to communicate with the child. They're essentially becoming their own little person.
course.
And I actually feel like it's a proper game changer. And I remember what it's like to have a small baby that's more dependable on you. But when you have a child that's school age, they've got to be in school legally for X amount of hours anyway. So that
Yeah,
you've already got hours allocated to your work if you are a person that's freelancing, for example, or
yep,
just even if you're just working a full-time or a part-time job, you know that you have X amount of hours that you don't need childcare for because they're going to be at school.
agreed.
And then for people that like don't have children, it's not going to be the same as like, okay, I've got to pass this child their bottle or whatever. They're going
Yeah,
to actually be able to interact and joke around and play with the child. They're going to get sort of like the nice parts, and
yeah,
not the scary parts.
yeah,
So I
exactly.
do think that the age makes a massive difference because like with my child, she is literally just like, I don't know, I can't explain it. She's just like sunshine on legs kind of thing. Like I'll give you an example, right? So like when we're out and about, if I see somebody that I've not seen for a few years, I'll stop and I'll speak to them, and they'll probably come in to give me a hug because like I've not seen you for ages. My daughter, even though she's never seen this person before, will then go in for a hug as well. So the person like gives her a hug, and they really do become like just
Anyway,
like your left hand. Yeah,
yeah.
literally, like, it's like a miniature friend, like miniature best friend. So do you think? I mean, I suppose it's hard for you to speak from that perspective because your child's not reached that age yet, but do you not think it'll be slightly different when your child's older and you'll be able to have that flexibility more and your friends won't have to be scared of coming over? Because I find that there's actually, I've experienced the opposite where had friends and they've been like, hey, shall we take your daughter to this place and that place? And they want to like spend time with her and they don't even have children themselves. So do
Yeah.
you not think it may change as your child grows?
I think so, yeah. I think, it's about connectability in terms of, the older the child gets, as you mentioned, the more it's easier to connect with them.
Mm,
We've got a lot of parent friends now here, and they're great. They always want to go out with the kids and do this or do that, and that's fantastic. But yeah, I mean, most of my single friends, they're like, let's go clubbing or let's go to Ibiza or let's go here or
mm,
um,
yeah.
and that's the reality really. So it's a bit of both. As he grows older, I think he'll find his own way. There's a lot of similarities between me and him already, so I think it'll just carry on.
I think you'll be fine. And I think as well, you mentioned an important thing there that you do have parent friends that want to go out and take the children out. And I definitely think that as a parent, I think it's important to have a little bit of both.
Yeah,
Because I feel like your friends without children kind of remind you to kind of have a social life outside of like being a parent.
yeah,
But then your parent friends, they keep you grounded, and there's always going to be a plan for a play date. Like even if it's just going around to each other's houses, I think it's important as a parent to have both those sets of friends, and
yeah,
then you can really get a nice balance as well.
yeah. I think when a lot of people become parents, they're like, "Oh, I'm just going to cut anyone off who hasn't got a kid." And the reality is, most of my friends will probably have kids. I've got a friend who's in his 40s, and I'm sure he's going to have a kid in the next sort of couple of years.
Mm,
It it doesn't change much. I still speak to everyone. Weirdly, a lot of my friends are business owners, so we have a lot of similarities and a lot of ways that we can connect
mm.
in terms of personal, in terms of business, and various other things. Um, it doesn't change much. You just gotta keep growing and keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, definitely.
Hey, I'm Ross Jenkins, and you're listening to the I'm Here for the Soul podcast.
So I want to go back to your business and talk about like what were some of the biggest challenges you faced when you was building that website?
Um, I think it's trying to get a trust credibility. At the time, I hadn't had any features or anything like that. I had a few case studies from past clients and stuff like that. But trying to get people to trust me. I think my first client on Upwork was he was a I think he was a bar owner in Los Angeles, and I went and met him maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Mm,
He stopped being my client a long time before that. But he hired me on $25 an hour, and he was great. He was a really nice guy, and we had a lot of connections and stuff like that. And he probably was a reason why I got this big on Upwork because he took that risk. I mean, $25 an hour is nothing, but he took that risk. And it massively impacted me. So it's just trying to get that first client and then it snowballs really from there.
yeah. So when you started your business like 3 years ago, right?
Probably 4.5 years ago, I think.
4.5 years ago. What was your mental health like when you were starting a business? Because I imagine that you just feel so much pressure, like I've got to make this work, I've got to make this happen. Or did you feel quite secure and felt like you'd saved enough money to kind of actually, go for it and launch your business?
Yeah, obviously I had like barely any money. So I was just applying
Right,
for
okay.
jobs and I was building a routine of my own that like I was speaking to my friends and kind of working out what they're doing and working out what I could do. At the time, my friend was building Jack's Flight Club. And I was like, should I try jump on this and see if they're interested, or should I do my own thing, or should I go work for a company again? I remember I went to interview with a company here in Valencia, like while I was kind of freelancing, because I wasn't sure how well freelancing would work. My parents were like, it doesn't really exist, and at the time it
Mm,
didn't. Most people didn't know what freelancing was, and it was normally what you would do to pretend you were doing something when you didn't have a job, and that was a reality.
mm.
And so I was kind of building routines and kind of working out what works and stuff like that. So I had no stability, but I had no responsibilities either, other than paying for a flat in Barcelona. There wasn't much.
Yeah. Okay. So you did you did have some money coming in, but it wasn't like what people may think you would need to kind of start a business.
100% no. Yeah, it was a massive risk. And the reason I was able to do that was not only because I had no responsibilities, but also because I could fall back on my parents. They were fantastic in that sense that,
Mm.
obviously when I think I told my dad that I quit my job and he was like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't stand working for this guy anymore. He just screwed me this much. And my dad was like, okay, do whatever you want. And
Mm,
I just yeah, I had that fallback plan.
mm. And you mentioned something really important there, which I like to always mention on the podcast, is that sometimes without realizing we're all kind of speaking from a place of privilege, because not everybody has parents that they can fall back on.
Yeah, 100%.
And I'm speaking as somebody as well who also like has a parent that I can fall back on. So I'm kind of like being able to relate to you in that aspect, that I've never really felt that kind of like immediate danger of like, worst case scenario, like I know that I wouldn't be like left on my own. And I feel like that's something that we have to acknowledge, just because, like I say, there are people out there who don't have that.
Yeah.
Um, so I think it's really important to kind of acknowledge that and own that. And it's just one of those things in life, I guess, that we're all kind of starting from a different playing field. But it doesn't take away from like obviously the hard work that you have put in and the resilience that you've put in to kind of like build this. So let's sort of talk about what advice you would give to somebody who really wants to start a business, but they are led to believe that they need to have loads of savings to get started.
Honestly, there were so many business people who told me, don't start your business until you're 30, don't do this, don't do that. Make sure you've got, 50K in the bank, or make sure you've got this in the bank. And I had none of them. I had
Mm,
motivation and drive, and I knew where I wanted to be. And
mm,
listen, if you really want to be in that place, you've just got to work your ass off. And there's a lot of people, like, I couldn't do a full-time job and a hobby on the side. I just know my mindset wouldn't work like that.
mm,
Um, it'd be one that would get massive priority over the other.
mm,
So someone's got to lose. So if you have no responsibilities and you really want to be in that position, just take the jump, take the leap, and really work your ass off for it. And don't expect your friends and family to be like, oh, I'm going to buy your product, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Don't rely on that. Rely on what your sort of tactics are. If your tactics are to go sell on Etsy, great, do it. Go find ways that you can promote it yourself. Don't expect your friends and family to do it, because the reality is they're not going to.
yeah. And also as well, like people forget that like their family and friends are not necessarily the target audience of their
Most
brand.
of the time they're not. Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's yeah, you've got to be able to promote it yourself. There's only like,
Mm,
let's say 10 people in your family who are going to buy from you. And then what? You
mm.
you've sold 10 items for £4 a piece. You've still got a lot
I
more.
also feel like as well, without trying to sound too harsh on people, because some people may be offended by this, but I feel like we have to really let go of that mindset of like my family and friends have to back this product, because ultimately your life is your own responsibility.
Yeah.
And I feel like you don't want to be that person that wakes up one day and wonders, what if? Like, what if I had done this? And it's like, is it really everybody else's fault? Is it really, your mum's fault or your grandma's fault that you didn't make that take that risk 5 years ago? Or does it really come down to us,
Yeah.
you
It's
know?
it's solely you. If you own a business, it's solely you. And as I mentioned, you've got 10 people that you're going to sell to in your family and friends. And then
Mm,
you've got to have a business plan. So you're much better just going to market immediately, working out how you're going to get the product out there, and
mm,
wing it. We had a company that we worked together with, me, my girlfriend, and one of our friends, and you know we it was a body shape company that we bought from another company, and we had to fund it solely, and I think it was nearly $100,000 a month, and
Wow.
bear in mind we never broke profit, and we had friends and family who were like, "Hey, can we get one?" And it's like, "Yeah, here's a link, you can buy it, but you're not getting it for free." But
Mm,
I don't want you to buy it because you think it's going to be a superb product, because it's not yet. We're trying to get to that position.
mm,
Um, and I think a lot of it is, we were trying to market it ourselves and work out our own directions, and not everything works. And that's why you use money and funds. That's your biggest winner. If you have
mm,
funds, you can try different things. You're throwing stuff at a wall and seeing what sticks,
mm.
and that's what your money's for. Um, and so, asking friends and family to buy things, if they don't want it, it's pointless. But if they want it, great, give them the link, but don't give them it for free.
Yeah, yeah. That's interesting, actually. Yeah, never give anything away for free.
Yeah, but also don't try give it to people who don't want it, because you're not going to get anything from that either. You're trying to give a product that people are going to like, and if they have no interest in it, it's not worth
Yeah.
it.
So, can you talk about when you first got your first client? How did that happen, and what was that like for you?
Yeah, so um, obviously I work on Upwork. That's one of our sort of platforms that we work with. So I was spending a fair amount of money applying for jobs, and I found this guy in Los Angeles. He ran I think it was like a bar club in Los Angeles, and had a call with him. He was great. I bidded $25 an hour, and we kind of worked out where he wanted to be and what he was having problems with. In short, we talk about pain points. So, we talk about what do you need me for, and what's your problems, and what do you want to improve on? And then I target them. So I say, okay, well, with this pain point, I think we can use this, or with this pain point, we can do that. He hired me, I think he hired me nearly on a day. And we started working together. I think I only had 10, 15 hours a week with him. So that wasn't enough to live on, but it was good enough to kind of build up what I needed. As well as doing that, I was applying for other jobs and slowly building up our reputation. I think it was job 3 where we had our first sort of big problem. Um, we don't work well with agencies, mainly because we want a big slice of the pie, and so do they. And we worked with this girl in Miami, and she managed to screw us over about a month of work. And that was
Wow.
probably our biggest hurdle, where I was like, do I go work for someone and get that stability back?
Mm. What do you mean, like get a normal job and yeah.
Yeah, because I was like, I lost a month of work.
Mm,
Thankfully, I had enough to pay rent and stuff like that. But I was
mm,
like, I could go sit in an office and you know, speak to people all day and have a lot more relaxing lifestyle. Because at the time it was full-time grinding. Like I had no girlfriend, I had nothing, and I was just kind of going for it.
yeah, I get you. Um, how hard was it to get a client though without having like like your first client? Because as you start to build reputation, you can say, okay, this is my past work. You have a bit more of a resume. But how do you even manage to secure that first client without having a work history in that department?
Yeah, so I still had work history in that department because I worked with other agencies before that.
Okay.
So I used my case studies and said, this is what I've done for another company.
Right, okay.
Here's points that we can take away from that and
Mm.
apply them to your business.
So you pretty much was already doing that before, and you took what you was
For
doing in
people.
your work and then, turned it into your own business, essentially.
Pretty much, yeah. I was doing this for other agencies, and they were
Mm.
making the big slice of the pie, and I was making very little. So what I've done is reverse it. I'm now making the big slice of the pie, and we have our own freelancers who work with us full time. Um, and it's just about growing and working out what works best.
Yeah, that's so smart because you've not like had to start from the ground up. You've kind of like you've studied your craft first
Yeah.
and then was able to take that and apply it into your own like personal brand. So
Yeah.
would you recommend that like most people do that then, or do you believe that, say, if somebody has like no background in fashion, do you believe that they would be able to start a clothing line, or would you recommend that people should kind of only start businesses in areas that they have like thoroughly worked in or studied prior?
Thing is, if you've got a lot of money, you can take those risks and you can work out what works well in fashion. You know, you
Mm,
can throw stuff at a wall and you can hire celebrities to do this or to do that. If you look at people like Zach Olslop, he does YouTube
mm,
videos, and he's a fantastic sort of memory of what you can do, even without money. He just dressed the guy up in IKEA bags and stuff like that and walked the red carpet. You know, it really shows that, you know, money's great because you can throw stuff at the wall, but also if you have a drive or you have a vision, you can use that. And I think he does that in his videos, so it's worth watching. But money's great because you can really invest it in strategies, which you need.
mm. Okay. So we briefly spoke about what I'm about to ask you about on the phone before, but I would like to kind of talk about it again because I think I was kind of just generally asking like what sort of advice you'd give to people, and then you started giving me advice on like as a podcast host, like how to grow the podcast.
Yeah.
So I feel like it'd be quite a fun question to ask you, like what would your business advice be for people that are kind of new in the podcasting field? And like what advice would you give to them to kind of grow their podcast platform?
Sure. So there's loads of different avenues you can go down from sort of improving your quality and then improving the listener rate. You know, you can run ads to your podcast to get people to opt in. And newsletter is always great. We worked with a company before who does newsletters for their podcasts. Every time a new one releases, they send an email and it's click here to download or click here to listen. Stuff like that massively improves your listener rate. You know, the quality and sort of the the variety of people that you have on board, like you mentioned, is key. Um, you know, if you can get people who are in completely different niches every time, um, who have had different life experiences, who have done different things, who are from different regions, from different lives, I think that's amazing. That kind of content for me just sells it because you know it's so interesting to see how other people live. That's why I like traveling. I like seeing how other people live or how other people find things normal. And that's what you can get from a podcast. So I think that'd be your best route. But obviously, once you start making money and you do sponsors, you run ads and do newsletters and stuff like that.
That's so interesting that you mentioned newsletters there because I remember like a few years ago, probably way back in like 2020, when I was just like at the very verge of like starting my podcast. It was before it was even for the uni project. So this was like way before like this was when I just wanted to start one without even considering it doing it for a uni project. And somebody gave me some advice on Twitter, just a really nice woman that just went out of her way to give me advice. And she said, newsletters, like having newsletters every week is a really good way to kind of, you know, reach your listeners. And I remembered that advice, but because a few years had passed, I thought, is that still, I don't know. I don't know whether people were still doing that. Do you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
I myself don't receive newsletters. So I wasn't really sure if there was an audience for that and who the audience would be. So you're saying that that's still a very effective way of like communicating with podcast listeners.
Yeah, it's massively impactful. Because if you can get their email addresses, not only can you email them saying, you know, there's a new podcast up with this person and this is why you should listen to it. That's you having your own billboard practically in their inbox for
Mm,
one. But two, you can do sponsors and stuff like that. You know, if you
yeah.
had 10,000 people listening to your podcast every month, the ability to have a sponsorship in the podcast as well as on the email just adds value in terms of
Mm.
your bank balance.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. Definitely take that on board, and I definitely asked that question for myself. But I mean, I feel like it'd be good for other podcast hosts as well, because I know that podcast hosts listen to podcasts. I mean, I definitely do.
Yeah.
I listen to podcasts because I want to be inspired, and I also listen to podcasts because I feel like in order to kind of be a good podcast host, you have to kind of have your ear to the ground
Yeah.
and know what's actually happening. You can't just jump on a mic and assume what people are going to want to hear. You've got to almost do your homework as well and listen to the most popular podcasts so that your expectation levels shoot up. Because if you're listening to like the most popular podcasts that have the greatest quality and stuff, your ear is going to start to get used to quality content. And
Yeah.
then even without realizing, you're going to take some of that and apply it into your own
Yeah, I
podcast as
think that's
well.
the same with anything. Like I'm
Mm,
opted into probably 10,000 plus newsletters, and I just see
mm,
them. And I understand what's going on, or I understand shit points, or
mm,
like say for instance, a newsletter is messed up, like the coding's wrong or this is wrong. I normally email them back. I'm like, hey, if you need any help, I'm here. And
mm.
it works sometimes. And
Yeah.
it's also great to see the quality. Like sometimes I look at emails and I'm like, damn, that's such a good email. And then
Mm,
sometimes like, there's so many ways that I can make this company better. Um, yeah, understanding like what's in your sort of niche is great. Like
mm,
viewing other podcasts or seeing what they're doing well or seeing what works or, you know, seeing that most podcasts have YouTubes as well.
mm.
That might be a good route for you because you have a good guest who shares your content. It helps you as well.
Yeah, that's actually so true. I actually started a YouTube channel like ages ago, and I've only just recently this year started to post on there.
Yeah.
Because one of the advice that I see all the time for podcasts is you have to be consistent as
Yeah.
well, so that listeners know, okay, that on this date, I know that this person's gonna, post a podcast episode. So that's actually one of my goals this year, to be consistent,
Yeah.
because I hadn't really consistently posted since like 2021. And I thought, okay, what I'm going to do is do a video version of each episode so that people have an option to either watch it or listen. And then that way, when people do go to the channel, there's going to be lots of videos featured. So it's quite interesting that you mentioned have a YouTube channel.
And things like shorts on YouTube or shorts that you put on TikTok, they're great. They're great for reach. And all you have to do is get a hook. If you catch something in this conversation where you're like, that would do great because it's super
Mm.
interesting or it's super inspiring. That kind of stuff works great for the shorts because then they view your main videos and then you get a listener.
Yeah, yeah, that's so true. That's interesting. And I think you mentioned a good point as well. Like when I talked about like having your ear to the ground or whatever, you said that that could work in lots of different areas. And I completely agree that like whatever your area of interest is, you have to study it so that so you know what it is that you need to bring to the table.
Yeah. And people always like, oh, I'm not going to opt into my competitors' newsletters. Well, I am. I'm going to. And I see what emails they're sending, and like I'm in everyone's newsletters. Honestly, if I see it on Twitter, I just opt in as well as like every other one's. And it's
Mm.
great because you see the variety and you see what's going on. And you see rubbish ones all the time. So it's pretty
It's just a little bit of healthy competition, isn't
yeah.
it?
Yeah, people
Yeah.
get so upset about it and they're like, you shouldn't be opting in if you're a competitor or this or
Mm. No, I
that.
don't see anything wrong with that. And also, it's just a little bit of healthy competition. It's not as if you're like sending them abusive emails back or anything. You just want to see what people are doing. I think that's actually really smart, actually.
Yeah, and it doesn't take long. And you see what's going on and stuff like that. And there's a good way that, for instance, if anyone else in the email marketing space, if you put a plus at the end of your email, so my email's like Ross Jenkins, if you put a plus and you put like, I'm opting into Fireflies or I'm opting into this, you'll always know where the email came from. So if they sell
Right.
you a list, you'll know where that list came from.
Wow. Okay. That's interesting that. Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned obviously that you've traveled a lot. You've lived in Dubai and you've lived in Spain. Where else have you lived? America?
I lived in Qatar, I lived in Ireland. I lived a little bit in America, but not for too long.
And what were your favorite places to live?
I like Dubai and stuff like that. I like that fake lifestyle. There's something about that place that I just have hope that, it will be the next America in terms of the economy, in
Mm.
terms of the way that, they have everything. I live in Spain, like
Yeah.
if I want to order food, it's never going to arrive. Like they just no one delivers it. Whereas in Dubai, I could say, I want this or I want that, and it's going to come. I just have a lot of faith that I believe they're building the next America. And I'd like to be a part of it. I'd like to help with building that in terms of, building out my company there and building out everything that we have there. Yeah, there's something there. But we're gonna try Philippines for a few months. In about a month now. We're gonna go for a few months and kind of stay there, and because they've also got some really cool places to live, and yeah, we're gonna check it out.
Yeah, I guess it's quite fun to do all of this as well before your son starts school, because I guess that school's not really on the forefront of your mind right now with him only being 19 months old.
Well, that's the big thing. We don't really want him going to school here in Spain.
Mm,
We've got to work all that stuff out and work out where we want to live.
mm,
So yeah, we're kind of, and the good thing is, before your son or daughter turns two, you don't have
mm.
to pay for a seat on the plane. But
Right, yes.
that's massively changing. So say for instance, if you're flying to the other side of the world, you don't have to
Mm,
pay for another plane ticket. Um,
yeah,
that's a big thing.
hack. Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good like hack really, isn't it? And you can kind of get to kind of know these different environments before you're in a position where you have to kind of decide on one as well.
Exactly. We want to be able to kind of get to the point where we're like, we really like that place.
Mm,
Should we move? How do we move and all that stuff? We want to be in that position rather than going, where do we live? Do we live in America? Do we live in England? Do we live in Spain? Do we live in Dubai? We want to be in the position before them.
yeah, yeah, I get you. So it's kind of like now you're almost just getting to like fuel out which is best.
Yeah.
Um, do you have any crazy travel stories or anything that that you kind of remember as a significant moment when you were sort of traveling around?
I mean, we've had a lot. We've missed a lot of flights. I remember we flew to, I don't know where we were flying to. Can't remember, but we were in France airport, and there was like a woman in front of me, and she had at least 50 bottles of perfume and alcohol and stuff like that. And I was behind
Wow.
her, and I was like, God damn, we're gonna miss our flight. And she goes, "Can you carry this for me?" I was like, "No, no." And we ended up missing our flight because she got inspected, and we were stuck behind her.
Um,
I've missed so many flights. But yeah, we don't really have a great amount of stories, mostly missing flights and stuff like that. We missed
mm.
a flight and got stuck in Bali like last year. That was pretty wild.
That's not a bad place to get stuck in though.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not that big fan of Bali. I spent like 3 months there, and I didn't get into the lifestyle as much. When it was COVID,
Really?
we were there for 3 months, and
Mhm.
we had a great place, and we had great location and stuff, but it just didn't do that much for me.
Oh, I'm really surprised. Is there like a lot of like yoga and stuff there?
Yeah, and then massively sort of a retreat for yoga and the wellness and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
their infrastructure isn't great in terms of their internet isn't fantastic everywhere.
Mm.
I th I think their food was pretty good. There was a lot of cool places we went to eat there
Mhm.
and stuff. But in reality, I just didn't dig it as much as especially on Instagram. You'll see everything there.
Is that because you needed your phone? Because I actually think a retreat and the lack of internet connection actually sounds quite good for for the soul without sounding ironic because of the name of the podcast. But like, do you know what I mean? Like, it sounds like it'd actually be quite good for you. Is that why? Did you want to sort of stay connected to your phone so it didn't,
Sure.
what
So
was it about it that
I
didn't
still had
interest you?
meetings to do and stuff like that. Your time is
Yeah.
massively off. So like if I was doing a call with one of my American clients, I'm up at like 4 a.m. trying to do a call with them.
Mm,
And the internet just switches off or the power switches off and you're like, great, what do I do now? Um,
yeah.
yeah, it wasn't fantastic in terms of that. My friends loved it. They loved it a lot, but nah, it just wasn't for me.
Are you not into like yoga or meditation?
No, no. I would like to learn to meditate a bit, but
Mm.
far away from it.
I would recommend guided meditations,
Okay.
like doing a guided one. That's what I like. I've not done it for a few months actually. But I don't know. You said that you struggle to wake up in the mornings.
Yeah.
Um, I actually did a few like guided morning meditations just on YouTube.
Yeah.
I just typed in like morning guided meditation, put my AirPods in, and you can do ones where you lie down. Because for
Yep.
me, I don't know what it is, but when you wake up first thing in the morning, you obviously have that urge to stay lying down.
Yeah.
So I prefer the ones that are designed for you to be laid down, and you just lie down on your back, and they just like give you like affirmations for the day.
Yep.
They tell you like today is going to be a positive day, you're going to be productive, and all those kind of things. And it's obviously telling you to like breathe in, breathe out, and it just makes you feel really calm and zen.
Yeah.
And you also don't feel that like, because it can be a bit jarring, can't it, to like wake up and then you have to jump out of bed and then you've got to quickly get ready, you got to have a shower, you got to do this, you got to do that. So
Yeah.
I think when you start the day with like a meditation, it just gets you into a calm mood, and then you're like, okay, I can do this. I can go to the kitchen and just make a warm drink now. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I would definitely recommend it. And if you do try it, please message me and let me know
Oh,
how it went. Do
I
you
will
think
for
that you
sure.
would try it?
Yeah, I think so. I probably won't try it there. A lot of people meditate in like saunas and stuff like that because you've got like 30 minutes to burn.
Mm,
Stuff like that is a lot of people do.
that's actually a good place to do it. But can you take your phone into a sauna though?
Yeah,
Oh, can you?
yeah.
Oh, you know what? It's been a long time since I've been in the sauna.
No, that stuff's great. Say for instance, you feel rubbish or you feel drained or you feel anything. You go in there for like half an hour, you sweat, and sweat gives you like a kind of like motivation in a weird way.
Mm.
It just makes you more awake and makes you more aware of things. It's fantastic.
Well, you're like, you're almost like detoxifying your body, aren't you? Because you're getting the sweat and the toxins out of your pores. I think for me, because I have asthma, the few times that I have been in a sauna, I've just felt like I just couldn't breathe.
Yeah. That's
But yeah.
like I have a lot of allergies, and when I go in a sauna, the allergies start toning down quite a lot. So
Mm,
something like asthma, they thought I had asthma originally because of all the
mhm.
allergies. So something like that could help you tone down kind of everything.
Yeah, I definitely need to try it. I have got access to one because at the gym that I go to, they actually do have a sauna and steam room. So I've got no excuse really. I've got
Yeah.
access to one, so I'll definitely give it a go.
And I think it's really good for like your heart and stuff like that. I think
Mm,
it's like 20% less risk of having like a stroke or heart attack and stuff like that, which is massive.
yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I'm definitely going to try that. Definitely going to try that. Um, and speaking of meditation as well, I was actually thinking of like doing, I thought about this a few years ago, but I never did it. Like of doing an episode which is just completely dedicated to like meditation, like actually doing one myself. But then I thought, I don't know, because I'm not like trained in like yoga or meditation or
Yeah.
anything. I'm just somebody that likes to do yoga. And because I do, that's one thing that I am still consistent in, like yoga, and then meditation is kind of like on and off. But I thought, oh, it'd be quite cool to just do an episode dedicated to that.
That would be like a new audience that you would attract.
Mm,
On the basis that you provided decent quality, people would love
mm.
that.
Oh, really? Do you think so?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Right, okay. You've given me the courage to try it now, and I'll give you credit. I'll be like, yeah, so it was actually Ross Jenkins that told me to go ahead with this. So
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
okay, so we're obviously a few months into the new year now. What are the sort of goals that you have for your business and or even just personal goals for yourself? What are the sort of goals do you have for yourself for the next year?
So they're kind of weird, but we're right at the end of paying off our mortgage.
Hmm.
We're about 15 months off paying our mortgage. So
Mm,
I'd like to get that paid off by the end of this year.
mhm,
Even with the fee at the end, we'd be pretty close. Um, I'd like to find where we're going to live. If that's going to be Dubai or that's going to be here or there.
mhm,
Our goal last year was to buy a flat in Dubai, but it's massively complicated to buy over there in terms of the way that they want money.
mm,
Doesn't look like it's super feasible. Not right now, it isn't. So yeah, we're working out where we're going to live and what we're going to do, and where our son's going to go to school and stuff. Just kind of secure a future. We're starting to build a lot more stuff off our brand now. Instead of pushing everyone through Upwork, who's now just doubled their freelancer rates, meaning that we have to pay double the rates. Um, we're getting a lot of clients direct, and that's great. You know, that's a fantastic feeling that we could survive without them pretty much. You know, Upwork's done amazing things for us, but also doubling the rates is not an ideal solution. So it's just kind of becoming more stable in what we're doing. I'd like to have more retainers. Retainers for us are great because it means that we know that we're getting paid every month. Whereas one-offs, normally we don't. We don't really have down months, but what we do find is, you know, if US says, oh, we might have a recession, all of our American clients start running like headless chickens, and start canceling projects or do this or do that. So retain is great for those kind of situations.
What are retainers? Sorry, because I've not heard of that myself. So just for myself and for people listening that are not sure, could you just explain that?
Yeah, so retainer means that we'll get paid X amount per month and we'll have X amount to do every month. Normally you give them a little bit of value because they're signing into a contract. It's a monthly contract. It doesn't mean anything. They could cancel after 1 month, but the idea is it'll be ongoing. These work great for businesses because it means that you're consistently getting paid every month.
Right. Okay. Okay, that's good. And how does somebody apply for retainers?
Well, you wouldn't ideally you want to do a couple of one-time projects for them, get into a position where you know you've got a good relationship with them, they feel that you're adding a lot of value, and you say, hey, this is what I'd like to do with you guys. You know, you'll pay, I don't know, $1,000 a month and you'll get this in return every month. You know, the communication will be on Slack. Slack's great because you can communicate with your clients a lot better. And you kind of build out what the scope is, what they'll get every month. And if they see the value, they'll sign into it, and you get paid every month, and you know how much you get paid.
Okay. Okay, that's great. Thanks for explaining that, by the way.
Cool.
And I think I just want to know as well, like, just I know that we spoke a lot about advice for business owners and things like that, but for freelancers, which will obviously cover a more wider range of people,
Yeah.
for any freelancer that's listening to this, I feel like I myself, I'm a bit of a freelancer because I kind of just do the journalistic stuff like in my free time. Like, what advice would you give for freelancers who want to kind of eventually make their whole living off of what they're doing on the side?
Yeah, you've got to apply for a lot of jobs. The competition is really high right now. Obviously, through COVID, people were applying for jobs like everything going. And now people are starting to go back to work, so there are more opportunities and less freelancers. But you've still got a mass amount of freelancers. Like we tried to hire for an admin, maybe I think it was like 2 months ago, and we had over 1,000 people apply, and that's crazy. And what we found for the most part is most of them didn't follow what we asked for in the job description, which was like, say this word first. So we eliminated like 90% of the people who applied for the job because they didn't do what we said in the job description. So just apply for jobs and read through and see if you can add value. And if you can, say it in the job post and say, you know, I'm Ross, I've been doing this for X amount of time. This is what I'd recommend, and this is how I'd like to go around it. And they'll appreciate it.
Yeah, that's so interesting that you said that a lot of people didn't follow the brief. And I feel like that's probably because I think a lot of people almost assume that they're not going to get it before they've even given themselves a chance. So they probably just like put half the amount of effort in. And is that like, what do you think what do you think's happening? Like, do you think that there's a reason why people are not following the brief?
Yeah, so me and Evan Fisher, we talk a lot about this. It's either they're doing copy and pastes, which work okay when you're bigger, but when you've got no reputation, it just doesn't work at all. Or they're using ChatGPT. ChatGPT worked for maybe like the first 2 days, but now everyone uses it. It's so obvious to spot it. For instance, your job title might have grammar errors, but then you've sent me a 12-page essay on why you want to do my job. You know, it's just super obvious.
Mm. Yeah, that's interesting, that is. So there you go. That's a word of advice to people. Just don't do that.
Yeah, and I think just if you want the job and you think it's a good employer, you've seen their reputation, you've seen how much they spend some time on it. Just spend an hour on it and really craft out something awesome.
Yeah, definitely. And one bit of advice that I was given actually by someone, Because I was told that like a really good way to like apply for jobs is like to have like a really strong cover letter as well.
Yeah,
So strong cover letter, strong CV, and kind of like adjust your cover letter every time.
yeah,
And I was like, oh, that just sounds a little bit tedious. And then the response was, it's better to have to do that, like 5 times, let's say, but because you've put so much effort in, you get like an interview for each
yeah,
one, than to have to continuously put out a mediocre CV over and over and over again, because you're not going to get the opportunities because people can see that the effort hasn't been put in. So you're going to gain more by taking that extra time out
yeah.
and putting that extra effort in, rather than thinking, I'm just going to cut corners here, but then you're just going to continuously be in that cycle of applying because you're not going to be getting it.
Yeah, the competition is so high right now. You're never going to win putting
Mm,
10% effort into things.
mm,
You're just not, and you're going to waste your time. You're going to waste everyone else's time.
mm.
It's a good job. Um, it's silly to give up on it.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, I feel like we have like covered a wide range of topics today. What are some final thoughts and words that you would like to kind of give to listeners?
Yeah, so if you have a dream, just go for it. Don't wait and wait and wait, because everyone tells you to wait until, you hit a certain thing or you do a certain thing or this or that. You know, while you work for someone else, you're building someone else's pyramid. And that's great for some people. You get the stability or you get the lifestyle or you get the learnings. But if you're not getting those kind of things, build your own. Get other people to help you build it, and keep listening and keep going from there.
Yeah. Right, great advice. And I'm going to do this new trend now. So this is new. It's starting with you. So you're going to be the first person that I'm doing this with. But I would like you, for the next guest that I have on the show, I would love for you to ask them a question that I could then like, relay back to them. So if you could just come up with that now, or if I've put you on the spot, you could just like send it to me in writing. But I feel like it could be good if the listeners can actually hear you saying it. It's like, what question would you give to the next guest?
Yeah, so I guess it would be, what would be like your dream position? Like, where would you want to be? Do you want to be like a multimillionaire, or do you want to, have 2 kids and a husband or a wife, or, whatever the situation is? I'd love to know those kind of things in terms of what position you'd like to be in that you're not in now.
That's a really like good question, and I feel like literally anyone could answer that as well.
Pretty much,
So
yeah. So I think that'd be the best one.
yeah, definitely. Okay, perfect. So I will like link all of your social media down below. But if you want to say like the best place for people to reach you on, if they wanted to get further advice or find out more about your business, like where can people find you?
Yeah, sure. So, either drop me an email. My email is ross@digitalme.cc, or go to our website, which is www.digitalme.cc. Look forward to hearing any questions. We'll go from there.
Oh, all right. Thank you so much for joining us today.
No problem. It's been great. Thanks so much.
Thank you.